Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, Malian troops are once again accused of abusing civilians. Villagers from near Oro in the north were reportedly robbed and raped over the weekend. The UN plans on launching an investigation. Also, ahead of the COP27 climate conference in November, scientists head to the Yangambi Biosphere Reserve in DR Congo to consider how to preserve the rainforests that are so crucial to the world's battle against the ravages of climate change. And after war between Ethiopian federal forces and Tigrayan rebels flared up again at the end of August, fighting has spread. I speak to the country's ambassador here in France about what prospects for peace remain. But first, jihadists affiliated to the Islamic State group have reportedly seized the town of Tallate in northern Mali. It was taken over after fighting with local rebels and rival extremists linked to al-Qaeda. Mali's been struggling with a decade-long insurgency, but its soldiers have also been accused of atrocities. Most recently, the army and Russian paramilitaries believed to be working with it are accused of sexual assault and robbing civilians in the village of Near Oru over the weekend. Our regional correspondent Sophie Lamotte has more.
Information is still sketchy, but the UN has told us that it plans on launching a special investigation into allegations that Malian troops and Russian mercenaries abused civilians over the weekend. They've been accused of rape, theft, and other brutalities. A recent investigation by France 24's sister radio station RFI shows that Malian armed forces along with Russian fighters arrived in the town of Niaouro in central Mali early on Sunday. The town, it's almost deserted because of the terrorist activity in the region, and sources say that everyone in the city was taken to the school and the medical center when the army arrived. The women were then ordered to go back to their homes. Armed forces, both the Malian and Russian forces, followed them, ordered them to undress. Some say they were raped and sexually assaulted. They also say armed forces sold some jewellery and other valuable goods. The army has repeatedly been accused of theft and violence, but it's the first time there's allegation of rape or sexual assault, and also perpetrated by white soldiers who may be Russian paramilitaries brought in by the Malian junta.
Sophie Lamotte there for us. Now, US climate envoy John Kerry met with representatives from 24 African countries in Egypt on Wednesday as they look ahead to the COP27 climate conference due to be held there in November. Now, Kerry's warned that the world was in trouble over climate change. But just days earlier, African leaders lashed out at their counterparts from more developed nations who stayed away from another key summit on Africa's climate adaptation financing needs in Rotterdam. Now, the continent will need as much as $1.6 trillion by 2030 to adapt to the already apparent ravages of global warming caused mainly by emissions from more industrialized nations. And ahead of COP27, African expertise from a wide range of sectors are ramping up their preparations. This week, the Yangambi Biosphere Reserve in DR Congo also hosted a special scientific meeting to study rainforests' role in battling climate change. At the heart of the conversations was how to preserve the Congo Basin rainforest, the world's second largest behind the Amazon. Laurent Berstecker has more.
Stretching more than 50 meters above the canopy, the Congo Flux Tower quantifies and measures CO2 emissions in the Congo Basin. The lush rainforest is known as the second lung of the planet after the Amazon, but in recent years it's been increasingly affected by deforestation caused mainly by industrial logging and by slash-and-burn agriculture still prevalent among local farmers.
The exploitation of wood-based energy to make firewood, as well as agriculture and demographic pressure, are major factors in causing deforestation.
In recent years, several environmental actors have tried to tackle the issue by introducing sustainable farming practices in local communities, an approach which could help locals earn a better living while protecting the environment. But these efforts are often hampered by a lack of funds, despite pledges by polluting countries to contribute to the preservation of the Congo Basin rainforest.
The local community needs to have alternative activities that reduce the pressure on the forest. But the mechanisms put in place by the international community are still very theoretical. There are very long procedures to access carbon financing.
With the Amazon rainforest shrinking in size each year and fast approaching a point of no return, preserving the Congo basin has become a crucial priority in the fight against global warming.
Now, the US envoy to the Horn of Africa was in Ethiopia this week to try and push for an end to the resumption of fighting between federal troops and rebels in the northern region of Tigray. That started up again in late August after about 5 months of truce that had held hopes of bringing about an end to almost 2 years of civil war in which thousands have been killed and millions forced from their homes since battling first began in 2020. Well, for more on this, I'm joined now by Ethiopia's ambassador to France. Ambassador, thanks so much for coming in to speak to me. First of all, there's a real grim deja vu to all of this. What happened?
It's unfortunate, but the TPLF decided that they come to an end because on the 24th of August, they decided to attack the Afar and Amhara regions, in particular a place called Kobo. They invaded with a huge army in human waves, and so they're still occupying that area. So they decided that they, again, like last 2 years ago in November, that there is a military solution to a political problem. And they broke the truth, which was actually a unilateral truth declared by the government, which had enabled, things to be put in place in terms of humanitarian assistance, which had enabled progress to be made, and a hope for a negotiated peace was there. But unfortunately, the TPLF is still in its belligerent stance. It still believes that it can impose its will on the Ethiopian people through violence and war. People are being displaced. People are dying, civilians in particular, especially, as I said, in Amhara and Afar regions. And I believe it's up to the international community to denounce the TPLF because we haven't heard this. It's good to say that war has started, but it's also important to note that the party which started it should be condemned so that we all return to the negotiating table and find a political solution.
Well, both sides are saying it's the other side that started it.
But, madam, the fact that they're occupying the Amhara region and Kobo is a very good sign that they are the ones who actually triggered this conflict. There cannot be any disputing the fact that they're occupying the Amhara region today, which they were not occupying on the 24th of August. So they triggered this. And after triggering...
But that occupation followed the resumptions of hostilities.
No. We had a unilateral truce in place for the last several months, as you noted. Mm-hmm. That truce was unilateral, declared, but it was accepted by the TPLF, albeit initially they launched attacks again on the Amhara and Afar neighboring regions, which impeded humanitarian access, but it held. And a hope for a negotiated solution was possible. But unfortunately, again, they invaded the Amhara regions, displacing many people, killing many people, and by the way, using also child soldiers. So we hope that the Friends of Ethiopia and the international community at large will condemn this and say that enough is enough. Well, Ethiopians want to live in peace.
In terms of these competing narratives about exactly what triggered the breakdown of peace talks, we also have the attacks on the air raids on Mekele, which reportedly, one of those airstrikes struck a kindergarten where four people were killed. So,
but again, it's important to look at the sequence of events. First of all, it is the TPLF which launched the attack and occupied the Kobo area, namely in the Amhara region. After that, there were reports by TPLF sources, by the way, because the government is not in Mekele. There's no independent confirmation possible of what happened in Mekele. We believe they staged that to make believe to the international community that our army is somehow intent on perpetuating crimes against its own population, which is not true. Our army is very disciplined. It is working for its population. And as we speak, our army is defending the populations in Amhara against TPLF forces that are trying to advance and displacing populations and killing civilians. So it's very important to get the fact right. Like in all wars also in Africa, you have to say who started them. It's important to say who is the initiator. The origin of the conflict matters. Like in November 2020, it was the TPLF, but we're not hearing it. And that, for many Ethiopians, is really something that is difficult to accept. When one side perpetuates an aggression, when one side perpetuates a violent attack, it has to be condemned.
But I think one of the problems is we have two sides saying that it's the other side who started it, and a continued inability to have access to the region, so there can be independent verification as to what's going on.
But the facts are not disputed. Like in November 2020, they came on regional TV, on Tigray TV at the time, to say why they launched what they termed a preemptive attack.
But no, let's talk about what launched this most recent.
Yeah, but even that one was not condemned as it should have been by the international community. And initiators of conflict should be condemned, and it was not done so. Today, on the 24th of August, they invaded the Amhara region in the Kobo area. Nothing from the international community, especially from the media, to say this is an aggression that was committed and the truth was broken by the TPLF. That helps to find a political solution. That helps to put pressure on the TPLF so that it understands that only a political settlement is possible. If you put two warring parties on the same footing while one is the aggressor and the other is the victim, you have a problem.
But what about those who are neither aggressor or victim in terms of, actually having military might within this fight? The actual civilians caught up in the middle. We've seen through the first phase a lot of allegations that it was very difficult to get humanitarian aid to those in Tigray. You've talked about, the difficulties faced by those in Amhara, and of course, that is very concerning as well. But also you have the Tigrayan civilians.
Yes, because
what has the federal government done to try and mitigate some of the damage being inflicted on the civilians?
The humanitarian truce was declared for the purpose of coming to aid to our people in Tigray. Mm-hmm. And we opened up humanitarian corridors by air, by land. That humanitarian corridor was made impossible because of the attacks by the TPLF in the Amhara region initially. Then, when we pushed them back, the humanitarian assistance flow was actually being undertaken normally until the 24th of August again, when they launched the attacks. So you cannot really put us on the same footing. If they commit these actions, if they attack the humanitarian corridor lanes, how is humanitarian assistance going through? It's not possible. So it's really, from a political and humanitarian point of view, up to the international community to condemn these attacks so that the humanitarian assistance can come through, also that the political solution can be found. It's very important.
Ambassador Henok Teferra, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you very much
and for giving us your take on the devastating and ongoing conflict in Ethiopia. That is, though, all we have time for Eye on Africa. Thanks for joining us. Do so again. Take care.